All right, guys, welcome back. I am back with the fabulous Deidre. All right, let's come back on video and welcome. It is awesome to have you. So we've been having all kinds of amazing conversations, and do you see anything in the middle of the screen?
I see you in the middle of the screen.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, things are working because I saw something and I was like, oh no, more tech. How are you doing today, Deidre?
I'm so good. I'm so good. It's not the most beautiful day here where I am, but I feel great and I'm excited to be on your summit. So thanks for having me.
I am so delighted that you accepted and you're here and we're going to have an amazing conversation. And I'd like to start off with the question I've been asking all of our speakers, which is when it comes to a connection that you've had, usually these are relationships of some sort. Can you tell us about one that grew you, that made you into somebody you didn't even know you might become? And then the flip side of that coin, a connection that caused you to be somebody maybe you didn't want to be. One that kind of sent you in a downward spiral.
I love these questions. So there's this wonderful woman that I met years ago, and I was going through a transition in my life and things were a little bit chaotic at the time. And what I really loved about our connection and our conversations was she was an active listener. And what I mean by that is not necessarily someone who's coming in every sentence or so and contributing, but really like I could tell that she had her full presence with everything I was saying, and there was absolutely no judgment, no projection, and there was just space to be however I was without feeling like I had to be different. And that was a beautiful gift. And that allowed me to be myself, to move through what I was going through, and also to recognize that is the true vehicle for healing, is true contact, which is physical contact, just like we're doing right now, Natasha, without distractions of our phones, having our own thoughts in our head, and thinking about how we're going to respond to the person, instead just being that blank canvas of receiving and holding space. So that was a really beautiful relationship.
And how did that transform you?
Well, it transformed me in the way that I don't think I ever had someone in my life give me so much space to be in who I was and what I was going through, that it allowed me to want to be more of that for others. And also it showed me exactly what true communication and contact is, rather than what I was programmed to think it was, which is like the active listener and like adding stuff in all the time, where that's actually just a projection of our ego and filling a role that we think that we need to fill. So it really allowed me to understand communication better and be a better listener.
So the experience had you rethink what good communication was, and it allowed you to be your authentic self more often.
You got it. Exactly.
I love that. I totally love that. So what about the other side of the coin?
Well, it was an intimate relationship, and the piece in the relationship was I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel understood. I didn't have that space to be who I was. So in those moments, I wasn't necessarily the best communicator, because the old way of communicating, which was this is how I feel, this is what I'm looking for, etc., it wasn't penetrating. The person wasn't getting it. And as a result, I'm a fixer, right? I'm a fixer and a like, how can I improve? So I was trying all these different ways of communicating, but the truth was this person wasn't receiving, hearing, open in contact. So it influenced me in a way where I felt very reactive, frustrated, and questioning my own ability to communicate, and just a lot of frustration.
That totally makes sense.
Hmm.
So having these experiences obviously clued you into communicating differently, being differently, showing up differently for people. What treats and insights do you have for our audience today? Because we're talking about awakening to a higher self. And
Hmm.
what is a higher self as you see it?
Hmm.
Why is it we're asleep? How do we awaken? So many questions.
So many questions, so little time. So I am so excited to share this today. This is the work that I do. This is what, gets me out of bed every day, and what really allows me to be connected with myself and the world around me. So great question. What is our highest self? Well, our highest self is our highest intelligence. It's like that grandma energy of knowing what the best thing to do is, but also in your body of like being a 30 or 40-year-old and having everything going on. It's, the wisdom without the attachment, without the reactivity, without the smallness of the ego and self. And it allows you to operate from a place of being in alignment with your true identity rather than getting caught up in the small things that won't matter tomorrow, a month from now, a year from now. It allows you to align with your purpose and really show up as who you are. So that intelligence of our highest self, it is ourself. It's just not always showing up. We're not always showing up as that person. So when we're in fear, when we're in anxiety, when we're experiencing dis-ease in the body, and we're experiencing a lot of chaos in our life, it's because we're disconnected from our higher self. So when we're in full integration of our higher self, we're in flow. We're in like everything is awesome. And it's just a rolling effect of one amazing thing turns into the next, blessing. And so that is what our highest self is. And that's why we want to connect to it, because it's so juicy.
So if I've never heard of a higher self before,
Yes.
and I have no clue what that is. And
Right.
so I don't know, maybe there are people who've done Hawaiian Huna, maybe they haven't.
Right.
In Huna, there's like the unconscious and the conscious and the higher self.
Right.
Is it kind of like that? Like, what if I know nothing about it? It's like, what are you talking about, Deidre?
I love it.
How
So,
do you because
yeah.
you have to know that there is a connection possible. It's like dialing the phone, right? You want to reach the
Mm,
person, you've got to dial that right number. And how do you get the
right.
right number if you don't even know they're there and you've got this we used to have these big things called the yellow pages. They had they had like phone numbers in them.
Right. Yeah.
So you
Totally.
find people that way. How do you do it in a world where there's no yellow pages? You don't even know that person's there. You don't even know there's a number.
Well, I would love to share that with you. I have some slides, but I'm actually not going to pull them up. I'm just going to go through and share a little bit with everyone, if that's okay with you, Natasha, of how you can connect with your higher self. Because if this is something that's foreign to you, I know it's funny. I was in Bali for a few months, and there you can talk about higher self. You can talk about past lives. You can talk about all of that stuff, and it's normal conversation. But you come back to North America and people, you say higher self or something, and people look at you funny and they're like, I don't get it. So I'm going to break it down. I'm going to teach you the 5 things that you need to know in order to connect yourself, and also the benefits of it, so that you can start doing this now and discovering it for yourself. And then at the end, if it's okay with you, Natasha, I'm going to share with how people could access something that's 100% free, that they can get a little bit more insight. Does that work?
I love that. Thank you so much for doing that. Super appreciate it. And I love your flexing with this and engaging with the question and trying to address what people are probably thinking, but I'm just doing a little bit of mind reading. So
Yeah, well, I love that. Your intuition is on point. I tell you, I love it. So we're going to talk about how to connect with your higher self today, because if you don't know what your higher self is, or you haven't experienced it, it's very difficult to connect with it. Would you agree? So, have you ever wondered what it would be like to connect deeply with yourself on a day-to-day basis and not need anything outside of you to give you answers, to give you direction, to tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing. And also to connect you deeply with the world around you, that you just feel this sense of oneness, the sense of peace, the sense of inner knowing, and this sense of belonging every single day. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to show up fully for your mission, for your purpose, and not have self-sabotage or other habits or behaviors get in your way and prevent you from showing up fully? Have you ever wondered what it would be like to dissolve any mental, emotional, and physical barriers that are preventing you from being the person deep down inside of you that you know that you're here to be? I know I have. You asked the question of what is your highest self, and your highest self is infinite. It's the infinite part of you that's inside of you. We have this meat body, this body we were born into, but there's something so much greater that we all have, and it's infinite. It's the part of you that can do, be, create, and experience anything that you want in this life from a place of love, from a place of wisdom, and from a place of your highest intelligence and gifts. So, why connect with your higher self? Well, your higher self doesn't suffer. I think that's a pretty good reason to connect with your higher self, is because when you are fully connected with your higher self, you don't go through old stories. You don't go to old habits and behaviors and do things that sabotage your happiness, your health, your purpose. You're able to show up fully rather than going on, maybe these tangents of doing things that aren't aligned with who you are in your core. You want to connect with yourself, your highest self, because it's your higher wisdom. It's the part of you that, after having a fight with someone or doing something like eating a whole bag of, mini eggs after you've been locked up for 14 days in quarantine. It's like, I shouldn't have done that. I didn't really need those eggs. It's the part of you that aligns with your true identity, who you really are. And we all know who we really are at our core. The question is, are we living a life that fully aligns with it? Are we feeling every day like we're living our life fully and showing up as who we really are? And that's the work that I do, and that's what lights me up. So who am I and why listen to me, right? I'm just a person on a summit talking to you. Probably are like, who is this person in front of me? Well, my name's Deidre Sirianni, and I have been in this work of diving deep internally, working with my own self, my own intuition, my own higher intelligence, as well as many people over the past decade. I've studied with shamans from all over the world, and I've worked with some of the best people. And I'm known in this space as the accelerator. So what does that mean, the accelerator? I help people get accelerated results in their life, their business, and because we know directly what's going on in our life is a direct reflection of what's going on in our business. So accelerated healing and all of that. And it all comes down to connecting deeply with your soul, your higher intelligence, and then being a manifestation of that, being the vehicle of who you really are. So challenges many of us face when we're not connected with our higher self include feeling unfulfilled, feeling disconnected from ourselves and others. And we're at a time right now when many of us are feeling disconnected. You may be locked up or feel isolated from others, and it's such an opportunity to connect deeper with ourselves. And at the same time, it can bring a lot of emotions, a lot of discomfort to the surface. So most of us can face this feeling of being unfulfilled and disconnected. challenges many of us are facing are symptoms of being out of alignment with who we really are in the world. So this could be having poor relationships, having drama in our life, having manifestations of disease. I believe on a very deep level, and this is from the work of studying with shamans and learning what our soul is communicating, is that our symptoms are a manifestation of our soul giving us a message. And until we receive the message, our body will continue to give us symptoms of anxiety, maybe depression, maybe certain other symptoms of discomfort in the body until, guess what? We are forced to wake up and hear the higher messages. So you can see the importance of waking up to your higher self. It comes down to everything. The next thing is many challenges a lot of us are facing is we're not getting the desired results that we want in our life. So maybe you want to call in that partner, you want to have more loving relationships with your family, you want to have more abundance in your life, you want to make a bigger impact, you want to show up more fully for your purpose and what you love most. Well, if you're not getting the desired results that you want in your life, it comes down to not being connected to your higher self, your higher wisdom. If you're having those symptoms of being out of alignment with your true self, it's because you're not connected with your higher self. If you're feeling disconnected with yourself and others, and a lot of emotions are surfacing at this moment in time, and you're feeling unfulfilled and you're not sure why or what's going on, it's because you're not connected with your higher self. So for many years in my life, I was not connected with my higher self. I was living a life where I got really good at checking things off of the list. Get married, start a business, go traveling together, buy the house, get a dog, buy the new car, chase success, all of this. And I did that, but I kept looking around at my life. And I remember this one moment looking around at my friends and wondering, are they really as happy as they seem? Or are they pretending as much as me? Because I didn't feel connected to the life that I was living. And I was so busy distracting myself with work, with being social, with being outside of myself, with being busy, with keeping up with my image and, chasing goals, that I wasn't giving myself time for stillness to connect with myself. And because I wasn't connecting with myself, because I was kind of on autopilot of running on a hamster wheel and doing the same thing every single day, and putting on the smile and pretending things were great. And the most important thing about what I'm saying right now is, from the outside looking in, it looked like I had the perfect life. It looked like I was happy. It looked like everything was going great. But the truth was, on a very deep level, I didn't know who I was. I wasn't fulfilled. I didn't feel the highs of life and I didn't feel the lows of life. I was just in between. It was like I was playing a role that I didn't even know. And I woke up one day and realized I had created a life that didn't really feel like my own. And this is when the question kept coming up for me. And the question was, is this it? Is this really what love is supposed to feel like? Is this what success is supposed to feel like? Is this what my life is supposed to feel like? And I ignored those questions for as long as I could because I didn't know how to unravel them. I didn't know how to go there. I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the support. I didn't have the connection with my highest self until I hit my rock bottom moment, and it came like it was coming for years, I tell you. I was getting symptoms of anxiety. I had social anxiety despite being in front of over 100 people a day, being a leader, being the person that was bringing inspiration to many. I had manifestations of psoriasis and other autoimmune diseases. I had stomach aches. I felt tired all the time. I felt unfulfilled. I felt irritable. I felt disconnected from who I was. And then I also had depression to the point of having a vision of killing myself. And that wasn't even my wake up call. My wake up call was I lost a chunk of hair. That was a part of it. And at that time, my hair was down on my hips and it was a vanity thing. And it really, noticing that I lost a huge chunk of hair on the top of my head, it was the universe saying, wake up. There is so much more. We are trying to give you a nudge, but you're not listening because you're stubborn. And I continue to be stubborn because that was my past me. And then I finally woke up and I realized, no, I'm going to change something here. And with losing that chunk of hair and finding out I could lose all of my hair from the doctor, I knew that I had to change my life. I received another message from my soul, which I had been so disconnected from because I was on autopilot, that if I did not change my life, I would get cancer and die in a year. And that may seem like an extreme statement, but it was so deep. It was so true. And in that moment, I knew that I could continue down the path that I was on, or I could make a change. And that's when everything changed for me. That's when I dove into the work that I do now, studied with shamans, connected with source energy, and really unraveled the gifts and the work that I do today and serve other people with connecting with them, their highest self, and getting accelerated results in their life. But it wasn't easy until I had to get radically honest with myself, which is the most challenging step of all.
So you listened actually to the voice, and that internal voice was like your higher self speaking to you. And
Yes, it was
you
my soul.
listened, your soul speaking to you, and you listened. And a lot of people
Yes.
don't listen.
No. And so when we don't listen, it can show up in many different ways, as I mentioned, but I listened because I knew if I didn't, I wouldn't be here today. I know I wouldn't be here today if I didn't listen. But it doesn't have to be so hard. And that's what I realized. There's a path right in front of all of us that's available to us. But the question is, are we willing to be brave enough, to have enough courage to get out of our own way? And so I'm going to share 5 steps with you to connect, 5 things you need to know in order to connect with your highest self. And then we can open up to questions if you like, Natasha, or anything else. How does that sound?
That would be awesome. Thank you. Do you want to
Awesome.
share the your screen with our five secrets?
5 steps to connect. Okay, yes. Okay, so hold on a sec here. I got, okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so can you
And
see my
there's a
screen?
and there's a quick question. Would you say there's a difference between your soul and your higher self, or are they the same
Mm,
thing? Danny asks.
wow, that's a great question, Danny. So our soul is what we've been brought into this world, who we truly are. It's our soul is our intuition. Our soul, I would say, is more in our chest, is a deeper piece of us, which is constantly giving us nudges of what is congruent and what's incongruent. And it shows up in our physical body, our physical reality. Whereas our higher self is more of that divinity, that overview, that wisdom of connection, of intelligence. So that they're different in the way of one is more anchored in and one's more connected to source energy. Does that answer your question? Oh, you're muted, Natasha.
We'll find out in just a sec. So, and if not, go ahead, Danny, and pop it into either the chat or
Yeah.
the question box. So, 5 steps to connect our higher self. What?
5 things that you need to know. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. So the first thing that you need to know that really is important to connect with your highest self is you need to understand your ego. Okay. Because until you really understand your ego, you're not going to connect to your higher self because your ego is going to get in the way of that. And it's going to sabotage you from really knowing what the intelligence is because it's very difficult sometimes to understand our ego versus our true self. And I'll get into that in a moment. The next thing is you need to understand your true identity, who you truly are at your core, because until you understand who you truly are, you're not going to know what is aligned and what is not aligned with your true self. The next piece is you need to know how to reprogram your default settings, which I'll get into and I'll explain a little bit more of what that means. The next piece is you need to heal unhealed trauma. We've all experienced trauma, but until we heal it, it's going to continue to show up in our life and it's going to block us from really receiving that intelligence. And then the 5th step is you need to understand your soul's messages. We're constantly getting messages. The question is, are we noticing them and do we know how to decode them? So going to step 1, I'm going to get into a little bit of this with the ego. So your ego are your habits, your belief systems, and your behaviors. So if you want to get, kind of geeky with me, I love writing things down in notebooks, and I'm sure you could always come back maybe to this recording if you're able to purchase it later, is your habits, your belief systems, and your behaviors shape who you are. And that is our ego. That is our personality. So when we have our habits, our belief systems, and our behaviors, that is who we think we are, but that is not our true identity. So my question for you, if you want to go a little bit deeper here, what are your habits every day? What are your belief systems that are blocking you? And what are the behaviors that are not serving your highest good? And that is your ego. And it's uncomfortable to go there because it's who we've been showing up as our whole life. So you gotta understand what your ego is. The next step is you need to know what your true identity is. Your true identity is love. We are all beings of love. And we can't experience love until we understand our ego and really get into the space of who we really are at our core, which is love, which is purpose. It's honoring our dharma, our purpose, why we're here on earth, and fulfilling that. And then the 3rd thing is we are infinite possibilities. And the truth is, anything, anyone, anything outside of you that is telling you that you are not love, that you do not have a purpose, that you are not here to fulfill something greater than yourself, that you are not infinite, anything that blocks you from being the infinite being that you are is not your true identity. It comes from ego. It comes from an old paradigm of belief systems, of behaviors, and habits. The 3rd thing is the reprogramming. You got to know how to reprogram your default settings. So what is a default setting? A default setting is anything you naturally do when you're triggered. So for example, being at home, if you're at home right now and you're in isolation, and when you feel disconnected, you eat a bunch of chocolate, or when you feel upset, you yell at someone, or when you're not feeling good about yourself, you self-sabotage, or you run away from love when love appears. Whatever the trigger is for you is a default setting. It's something you do without thinking. For me, it's mini eggs sometimes when I've been cooped up. But it's important to know your default settings. So it's things that you do without thinking about them and not having that break in time to actually consciously change your habits, which is a part of your personality, your ego, which we just talked about in step 1. So it's your core triggers, understanding what your core triggers are in your life that get you to take actions that are not in alignment with your true self, that are not in alignment with your highest purpose, with infinite possibility, with love. So understanding those triggers that cause you to step away from your true self. And so knowing your default settings, as I mentioned, what are your default settings? What is it that you do? Do you numb with alcohol, with food, with exercise, with work, with overcommitting, with being a people pleaser, with overgiving, with sex, drugs, alcohol, addictions? These are all default settings for triggers, and they can change, and it can be that easy. And this is what I'm so passionate about. The next piece is, in order to reprogram these default settings and show up the way that you truly want to, you need to have space. You need to have support to consciously reprogram, because the truth is, if you've been doing something a certain way your whole life, you're going to continue doing things a certain way until you have a guide who can show you and help you go to that next step. And that's what I constantly was looking for and needed in order to make that change years ago when I was in that rock bottom moment. Because without that, nothing changes. But understanding your triggers, knowing your default settings is huge, and seeking a guide who you can trust, who gets you, who has been doing this work for a long time to be your guide. So the fourth thing you need to know in order to connect with your higher self and be in a space of abundance, of bliss, of connection, of honoring yourself and others and fulfilling your mission is you need to know that we all have trauma. Every single person. Every single person has trauma. And until we heal it, it's going to continue to influence our belief systems. It's going to continue to influence how we show up every day, our habits. It's going to continue to get us to step out of alignment with our true self, with those triggers, with those default settings, because it's imprinted from the past. So understanding your core imprints from the past is huge, massive awareness. The next piece is understanding that unhealed trauma affects you physically, mentally, emotionally, and energetically. So when we talk about manifestation, there's a lot of things out there on how to manifest this and that, etc. Well, until you're able to heal trauma, things are going to show up for you physically, mentally, emotionally, and energetically. So you're not able to be a vibrational match for what you want to attract until you've done that work of healing unhealed trauma. And the next piece is getting support to heal through those core traumas is essential. That was a game changer for me to really see the truth rather than get caught up in my ego and the noise. And this is something that I help people do as well. So the last piece of the understanding and knowing how to connect with your higher intelligence, your higher self, is you need to understand your soul's messages. So they come in many forms. I mentioned psoriasis, I mentioned anxiety, I mentioned depression. There's new studies that show that depression is actually about repeated thoughts that we have with ourselves, which can come down to unhealed trauma and all of that as well, right? So this is new information that's coming forward. And so anxiety is a message from your soul that's saying something is out of alignment here. And when you're able to really connect with it, you're able to integrate it. So any message that comes from your soul, whether it's a physical disease, it's anxiety, it's depression, it's disconnection, it's whatever that is, maybe it's a sign, a person telling you something or something happening outside of you, which the universe is always connecting with us, is that anything that's happening in the physical body, that's a manifestation, is actually a part of you that at some point in your experience you've disconnected from. There's a part of you that you've said, no, this is wrong, this isn't okay, this isn't a part of me. And the truth is that isn't love, that isn't infinity, that isn't joy, that isn't connection. That's actually pushing something away from yourself. So every time we dishonor ourselves, every time we step away from ourselves, all of that, when we're not listening, we get these messages, and some of them are anxiety, depression, dis-ease, etc. So I'm obviously super excited and passionate about all of this stuff. And those are the 5 things you need to know in order of how to begin to do the work to connect with your higher self and really have that higher intelligence of connecting with yourself and the world around you. So Natasha, I'd love to open this up to you now for any questions and anything else, as those are the 5 main pieces to connect with your higher self.
That is a ton of incredible work and value and information, Deidre. Thank you so much for doing that. So,
You are so welcome.
people love that answer. They love that piece. You know, so you've had this transition from the before and the after, and the before looked like everything was fine on the outside, but you
Yes.
knew it was wrong on the inside. And then you
Mhm.
went through this journey of connection. You looked at past trauma. You recognized who the self was. You got in touch with yourself and your experience. You used that as information to tell you about you. Hold on. I don't know if you guys are getting that sound, but those are notifications. So how, I mean, this is internal work. It's not easy.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people try really hard to stay away from the pain, to stay away from the hard stuff, to stay away from what's going to be agony, and they want to skip over all the hard stuff and they want to go to the good stuff. Can't you just get
Right.
me in touch with my higher self, and let's, do not go to jail, do not get stuck, do not suffer. Right. And then, there are these ideas out there of, well, suffering is optional.
Right.
You don't have to do it, and it's what you do to yourself. And
Right.
then we try to get into these mind games with ourselves. Like,
Yes.
what do you think about some of those messages and some of those approaches?
Well, it's funny that you say all this, because I'm a very direct person. I don't beat around the bush. So the question is, do you want to take the long path? Do you want to take 10 to 20 to 30 years to get where you want to go? Or do you want to do it in like 2 to 3 months of doing the work, of showing up fully, of feeling some of the feelings that you don't want to face and overcome it? So it's interesting because right now we're going through a lot in the world. And as I'm noticing a lot of what's going on online, and of course I've seen a lot of changes of what's happening, right? We're locked up, many of us, is that a lot of people are in anxiety, fear of being forced to look at parts of their life and selves and relationships that aren't working, and as well as their career, and if they're in their purpose and all of that, and being in a space of fear and survival. And in this space, every single person that I work with is thriving, is in a space of joy, abundance, bliss, because when you do the work, when you say yes to yourself, everything opens up for you. So the short answer is there will be discomfort. To have courage to show up for yourself, to be radically honest with yourself, to say yes and show up and take that first step of investing in yourself in this space. But the payoff is the rest of your life. I know for me and many of the people I've had the privilege of working with over the past decade is that I know for me, the cost of not doing the work was so much more significant than doing the work. It was my life. And the truth is, the reason why I'm so passionate about this work is because I had a vision of killing myself years ago. I know many people who have suffered with depression, dis-ease, and feeling like they've been dying a slow death for years. And this isn't necessarily depression, but numbing of like, why am I here? And that is the cost of not doing the work. And that actually is a lot more painful than being radically honest with yourself and saying yes to who you are and who you're meant to be. So it doesn't have to be hard. It can be easy, but the first step is being honest with yourself and saying, where I'm at isn't it, and I know there's something bigger.
Well, and maybe knowing how to hold, not suffering, but how to hold the emotions. And I love your contrast of, okay, let's do this over 30 years by circling around the issue, taking teeny tiny bites and backing off,
Mm-hmm.
versus let's take this journey, but you've got a support structure, you've got a system, you've got a way to hold people through it, which is very
Mm-hmm.
different. Because I mean, I know when I was going through my own personal growth and development experiences, and I was working with folks who might not have been as evolved as they said they were. Right. I mean, it happens in our space, right?
Yes.
And that the cost of losing time, losing life,
Yeah.
losing relationship, being able to shortcut that. What we're
Mm-hmm.
saying is there are things that we need to do with ourselves, that's work that we're going to do, that's inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
And then there
Mm-hmm.
are obstacles and there are pathways that take us away from that.
Yes.
And working with somebody who knows how to take those journeys, where those obstacles are, how to stay the course and stay the path, is really incredibly valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the distinction that you're making.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing is, it doesn't have to take 10 years to resolve one core challenge or trauma in your life. It can take 60 minutes or less, and you can walk away with absolute freedom and connection. And that's how easy it can be. And I didn't believe this until I experienced it. And now this is what I help people go through. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I want this for everyone, because until we know, we can't change how we are. Until we know what's available to us, we're going to continue to go to what we're familiar with. So thank you for bringing that up. That's really powerful.
And so, thank you for sharing your tips, your wisdom, your insights, your heart. I just love the way that you're presenting it. And tell us about the gift that you were just very generous in creating for this community, this tribe, this summit. I'm super touched that you went through that effort. Thank you. And tell us what it is. Tell us how to work with it. Tell us how to consume it. Tell us what it'll do.
Wow. Well, I just feel really blessed to be here and to be able to share this, as it's really powerful when we show up and we're coming together and connecting and learning and growing, and having someone like you who's really committed to their work is really inspiring. So thank you for showing up for everyone. And so the gift that I have for you that I'm so excited to give is I am giving away a session with me. I don't do this, okay? This isn't something I do because, we only have so much time on our hands and all of that. But I want to really honor everyone who's showing up for themselves and who is looking for clarity, who's looking to connect with their highest self. Because the truth is, when we do that, we inspire everyone else to show up as their true self. And that's how we can create the world that we love. So I'm offering a 45-minute discovery session with me where you're going to find out exactly what's going on. I'm going to give you some insights. I'm going to connect with my highest self and my higher intelligence to help give you some very key messages that your soul wants to bring through for you, and see how that can continue the work to show up more fully in your life. And the next piece is I'm offering a radically aligned assessment. So this assessment, I love it. It's about where you are now. So it's practicing radical honesty, where you want to be 12 months from now in 15 categories of your life, the 15 categories that matter most for you to be the most connected, the most fulfilled, to live your purpose, to be a vehicle of light, of love, of infinite possibilities that you are, and free to identify exactly what is in the way, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, energetic, whether it's a skill, etc. So you have radical clarity on what's in the way. And through doing that assessment and having the one-on-one session with me, you're going to move through an obstacle. You're going to connect with your higher self. I'm going to take you into a state where you're actually going to connect with your higher self and have a direct experience like that. Wow. Because it's that easy. It can happen in 15 to 30 minutes. And from there, you're going to have exact clarity on what it is you need to do and move through over the next 12 months. Or if you want a shorter path, how you can do that, and move forward and be radically aligned with who you're meant to be in the world, and really show up as a vehicle of light and love and connection. So I'm super excited to support each of you with that. So please go on over to the link that I believe is being shared right now in the chat.
For you to take for you.
Oh, awesome. I love it. For you to
Cameron's
take it
on it.
I love it. Right on it. Is sign up for that, and then we can book something in the next 2 weeks, and we can move you forward right away, because you don't have to wait. You can make that first step today.
That's amazing, Deidre. You have been just so awesome and so generous and so heartfelt. And I love your authenticity. And when you speak, you glow. And I think that's a testament to having that deeper connection to self and showing up as you. And, I think so many people judge themselves and they talk themselves out of being themselves, and they let society talk them out of being themselves. And you're just a beautiful example of being comfortable to be who you are.
Well, the real thing is, who else are we here to be?
I don't know, but I'm sure it's somebody that I'm not, right?
It's exhausting, right? It's exhausting to not be who you are. So you get a lot of energy back when you're just I surrender, universe. I'm going to be myself. So, yes, thank
Well,
you for
that
seeing.
that totally seems to be the theme of what we're tackling today. And I am totally loving that we're doing this and we're having that
Mm,
conversation, and that, we've got so many amazing, beautiful, powerful, authentic women showing up this morning,
mm,
comfortable to be, who you are, and to just, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is how I show up, and this, and I'm here to serve.
It's beautiful. And like attracts like. So good for you. Like you're vibrating at a very high frequency, and it's important to surround yourself with people who are showing up fully, and you're a beautiful example of that. So this is wonderful. Thanks for
Aw.
having me. It's been
Where
absolutely delightful.
are we allowed to have this much fun at a time like this, and have, like this much love at a time like this?
Yeah. Yeah, obvious. You know what? It's funny because right now, a lot of people are getting triggered by other people being in a space of joy and also chaos, right? Like trigger central right now. But the truth is, like, I'm having a great time. And like, I don't know, my life is just as great as normal. Like, yes, I've been spending a lot more time indoors. I'm not in San Diego right now where I was supposed to be moving. But you know what? Everything is great all of the time, and it's a choice. So yeah, we can totally have this much fun. You are so much fun, Natasha. Thank you so much for having me. Everyone who's here, I love you all, sending you all so many good vibes, and I look forward to connecting with each of you. Please book in your sessions. Please click the link. Please take action right away, because the fulfillment part of it is going to be a lot for me, as in scheduling. So the first people that take action are going to get booked in right away, and the rest will take a while. So please take action on that sooner than later, because the early bird gets the worm, or whatever the saying is.
And you've only got so much time and so much space for that. So
Yes.
please take Deidre up on her offer. It's an amazing offer, Deidre. Thank you so much for doing that. It's been amazing having this conversation with you. Thank you so much for your kindness, your generosity, your authenticity, and your glow.
Thank you. I'm glowing. Oh, also, I just see in the link that a couple people are commenting. Please send the link again for the free gift. So I don't know if they can't see it or if it's not
Yeah,
there, but okay,
we'll
perfect.
get that tackled.
Okay,
Thank
beautiful.
you so much. Appreciate
Thank
you. I'm
you.
going to close off the recording now. And again, heartfelt thanks to you.